My brothers and sisters in the Lord, I always find it very interesting that the church celebrates today the Feast of the Holy Family at a point in our life when many of us have already overdosed on family. The Feast of the Holy Family is always celebrated the Sunday after Christmas. And certainly, my brothers and sisters, as we celebrate this feast day, certainly we have been with our families. We've had the joy of family gatherings. We've had family functions. We had family parties. We have family expectations that sometimes are unreal expectations. The joy of family life. And many times we've gotten to a point that we've just had enough of family. Parents are starting to wonder when school is going to start. Spouses are starting to wonder when in-laws will be going home. Family, the joys of family. There's a little story about a young boy who went to his father. And he said to his father, he asked his father this question. He said, "Father, where do people come from? Where do people come from?" And the father said, "Well, son, there was Adam and Eve. And Adam and Eve had children. And those children grew up and they had children, and they had children, and so on and so forth until we exist today." And so then the son went to his mother and he said, "Mom, where did people come from?" And his mom said, "From monkeys. We all evolved from monkeys, and here we are today." And the little boy was very angry. And so he went to his dad and he said, "Dad, you lied to me." And the dad said, "Son, I didn't lie to you. Your mother was talking about her side of the family." Family. Sometimes they can drive us nuts. On the other spectrum, sometimes we can have a whole lot of family and we can feel very lonely. You may remember the old song, I think it was done by the artist Harry Chapin or something like that, called "The Cat's in the Cradle." It's a ballad between a father and a son. And the father is so concerned about working to provide for his family, he forgets the importance of being present to his family. If you remember the song, it goes back and forth. "When you're coming home, Dad?" the son asks. And the father responds, "I don't know when, but we'll get together then." Then, of course, as the son grows older and the father grows older, the roles reverse. And now the father is saying to the son, "Son, when are you coming home?" And the son replies, "Dad, I don't know when, but we'll get together then." Sometimes family life can be very lonely. I was speaking to a former parishioner this week. A gentleman has one daughter, not much other family. He's very elderly and he's very sick. And he said to himself he was going to call his daughter to find out whether she was coming home for Christmas. His daughter is a very, very important and famous attorney in California. And she said to him, "Dad, I just can't come home for Christmas. I've got too much to do. I've got all these cases that are lined up. I've got research to do. I've got people who are under me." And so the father said to her, "Well, can I ask you a question? When I die, are you going to come to my funeral?" And the daughter became very upset. She said, "Dad, of course I'm going to come. Why would you ask me a question like that?" And my friend said, I responded by simply saying, "Well, why don't you come right now? Because I need you more now than after I'm dead." Family life, my dear friends, has both the joys, the craziness, and also the sorrows that we experience. And certainly on this feast day, we look towards the Holy Family. The church gives us this feast day to challenge us, my dear friends, about examining the importance of family life. And in doing that, we look to the Holy Family, to Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. And oftentimes, my friends, when we look towards the creche and to the manger scene, we look at the figurines and they're made up of plaster and wood. They've been carved, they've been painted by artists, and sometimes we look at it in a very sentimental way. That is the Holy Family. I can never be like that. But we must remember, my dear friends, the Holy Family was holy, and all of us are called to strive for holiness, but the Holy Family was also human. They had the same experiences and trials and tribulations that we have in our own life. For example, things happen for the Holy Family that they did not expect. That happens, my dear friends, in all of our lives. Think about it for a moment. The Holy Family is a family in which Mary finds out she is pregnant. And she's betrothed to Joseph. At the time of Mary, to be betrothed meant just about to be married. And she's with child. We find out that Joseph is trying to figure out what to do because he knows he's not the father. And so he's trying to figure out, how do I divorce her quietly so not to bring shame to her, shame to me, shame to my family, and so that Mary is not stoned to death. We have a Holy Family that we hear of in the scriptures today, my dear friends, who is trying to live out their faith, who is bringing Jesus to the temple for this purification, for the circumcision, to present him to the Lord, who are striving and struggling to do what is right and what is asked of them. We have a Holy Family that has to go into exile because of King Herod, into a foreign land, into Egypt. We have a Holy Family who loses Jesus when he's 12 years old as they're coming back. How many of you have lost a child? I got lost once. I remember it to this day. It was in D.H. Homes. You know how they have those large racks that are circular with all the clothes on? Well, I decided to lose myself, and so I sat in the middle. It was long dresses so you couldn't see to the floor. And my mother was looking for me, and I was just there giggling away. And then my mother finally found me, and then I learned about the importance of family life at that moment. That's another story. But family, the Holy Family experienced all of these things. Mary was at the foot of the cross when her son, her child, was crucified. None of that was expected, my brothers and sisters. And so too in our own life. You see, my dear friends, in this Christmas season, the church gives us a season that has both the light and the shadows. Because what is the feast day that we celebrate directly after Christmas? It is the Feast of St. Stephen, the first martyr of the church. We're singing joy to the world, and then we're celebrating the first individual who gave his life for Jesus, for the gospel. A few days later, we celebrate the Feast of the Holy Innocents, the children who were murdered by King Herod, who gave their life for the Lord. You see, my brothers and sisters, we see that in these competing scenes in our own life of how there is joy and then there is sorrow, all mixed together. We see it in the life of the Holy Family. We see it in our lives. It is the life, my brothers and sisters, that we call of being a Christian. It is the story of salvation history. There was an image that hit me on Christmas Eve as I was coming into this church, and I was bringing the child Jesus to bring here in the manger. As I was coming down the main aisle, and certainly this was not planned, but we set up this particular manger this year right here in front of the altar. And so when I placed the child Jesus in the manger, there was an image that struck me, because right above the manger, my dear friends, is what? The cross. It was the first time I thought of it. It's the first time I saw it that way. As I placed him in the manger, right above him is the cross. And why is that important? It's important, my brothers and sisters, because you cannot separate the wood of the cradle from the wood of the cross. You can't separate it because it's part of salvation history. It's part of the story of salvation. That joy to the world, the Word became flesh. And when the Word became flesh, my brothers and sisters, it was going to bring and be connected to the suffering of the cross. But that suffering is redemptive for the salvation of the world. You can't take Jesus from the cradle, and you can't take him from the cross. And in our own life, my dear friends, the wood of the cradle and the wood of the cross is connected together as we live out the call to be holy, as we live out the call looking at the Holy Family in order to live out our family life. And how do we do that? How do we become a holy family? Well, we can follow the words that St. Paul gives us in our second reading to the Colossians. St. Paul is writing a love letter, not a romantic love letter, but he's writing a love letter to the Christian community of how to be church, of how to be the people of God. And he's writing to each and every one of us as our domestic churches, as our families, and he's writing to all of us and all the families that make up the family here at Mary Queen of Peace. What does St. Paul say? He says we have to have humility and kindness and compassion. We have to have forgiveness. We have to put on love, he says, which is the bond of perfection. And we have to allow the peace of Christ to take hold of our hearts. And we must be thankful, he says. My dear friends, if we strive to live out those virtues, then even in the joys of life, even in the craziness of family life, even in the sorrows and the headaches and the heartaches, we understand that we follow in the footsteps of the Holy Family, who saw, my dear friends, that there was a deep connection between the wood of the cradle and the wood of the cross. On this feast day, my dear friends, let us look at our own family life and let us ask ourselves how we can put those virtues into action so that we can exude that kindness and compassion the Lord asks of us, so that we can love as God desires us to love. And so that we can sing, "O come all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant, sorrow and sad, come all and everyone to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born the King of angels. Come, my dear friends, and let us adore him." And adoring him at the cradle, we also adore and reverence the cross. And we understand, my dear friends, what Jesus did for the salvation of the world. May God grant us the grace, my dear friends, to continue to allow the spirit of Christmas to live on in our hearts.